I've been using watercolors for 5, 6 years, but I've only been using gouache for about a year and a half. Hi, I'm Irene, and this is the Inkworks studio. I just thought I would talk a little bit about gouache and about my gouache journey, I guess. Basically, my experiences with this medium. So this is sort of impromptu. Yeah, I don't have anything scripted out like I normally do. So it's going to be a little stop and start. So right here, I've got some things here. This was just in anticipation of the eventual thumbnail. So let's just. These are some Da Vinci gouache in tubes here, and normally I keep them in this container here. We'll talk about the paints a little later, because first I think I'm just going to show some things, some pieces I've created using gouache, just so you can get a look at what I've done so far. Now, first of all, I think the very first piece I did, as opposed to like swatching or practice or whatever, was this one here. A little comical little tiki totem. And when I say I've been using gouache for a year and a half now, that's since, what was it, June of 22, and it is now November 23. Yeah, I thought this was fun. This was fun to do. And for my very first gouache project, I was very happy with it. I'll talk about the paper later as well. For now, I just want to continue to show you the different pieces. Okay, and I think this was the next one. I'm trying to go in chronological order. I actually think the concept sketch looked better than this finished product, but what can you do? And some, this way. This was a lot of fun too. Oh man, I highly recommend just doing something off the cuff, something a little impromptu, every once in a while at least. I just wanted to play with some colors and some strokes, and very happy with that. This one, portrait of Vincent Price, famous actor from, I think he worked in films from the 1930s. Yeah, many decades of working in film and television. Yeah, this is probably the best piece I've produced so far in gouache, and very, very happy with that. And then after that, I did this piece, which was kind of a disappointment. It looked better in my head, I guess, but still really fun to work with, to create. And most recently, this piece. And I have to say, what is it? These are probably two pieces that I am currently most proud of. But you know what? I forgot to show a couple of smaller pieces that I also did. Now this, Jack Skellington. And I was inspired by a piece of art decor, wall decor, for this style. And also a fishing lure. Okay. So now we've got a look at some things I've done with gouache. Now I kind of want to explain the papers first before I move on to the paints, since we're here. My personal preference is I believe, hot pressed watercolor paper, but I'm happy to work on pretty much any kind of watercolor paper or mixed media paper. This is Montfall watercolor cold press, and I believe this is cellulose. So this is very inexpensive, I believe, budget friendly. But yeah, so that's just a sketchbook with cold press texture. The texture is not pronounced. It does have texture, but it's not super bumpy. And I can work fine on that. That's not a problem. But like I said, I think my preference is just to have a smooth surface, and that works for me. Let me see if I can find. Yeah, here. This is a hot press piece here. This is actually Arches hot press paper. So this is 100% cotton. This is very nice to work on. I actually don't care for Arches hot press paper for watercolors. I find it a little difficult for me with watercolors, so I was happy to use this for gouache. Yeah, I was glad to have that on hand for gouache, and I should use that more. This one is a Fluid 100 cold press, and that is 100% cotton watercolor paper. And the texture here is pretty mild. Fluid 100 cold press is a pretty mild texture. I liked using gouache on this paper, so I need to remember my preferences here. Hot press paper. Now I also have Fluid 100 in hot press, and I like to use that with gouache. But this was the cold press, and like I said, the texture isn't too pronounced, so that worked really nice here. Now, the reason why I say my preference is hot press is because with watercolor, cold press works great with watercolor because you're working with a very liquidy medium. It flows everywhere, and it can fall into those little crevices and dips and crevices on cold press paper, and it fills that in nicely. Now gouache, yeah, you can water it down and use it in a similar way, but a lot of times you're using gouache in thicker applications, and that might not fill in all those little dips and crevices. So you'll end up with a lot of white spaces, blank spaces. If it does have a lot of texture, you could end up with a lot of little white pockets where the paint did not flow into. Now, that is not the case here. Obviously, like I said, this is not a heavily textured paper. It's pretty mild when it comes to cold press textures, actually, which is one reason why I'm happy to use that with gouache. I mean, yeah, you can probably use your brush to work the paint down into every little, dip and hole, but that's too much work. That's too much work. Now, I have a couple of pieces here on Artist Loft cold press cellulose paper. Yes, these two for sure. I'm not sure on this one, actually. I'm not sure if this might be Canson XL or it might be Strathmore 300 or 400. I'm not sure. But I do know that this is cellulose. It is not any cotton content on there. So this is very inexpensive paper. And the same with this one. These I did mark here. These are both Artist Loft cold press. And again, cellulose paper, very inexpensive. I don't claim to be an expert in gouache, but I do have some opinions from after playing with it for a year and a half. And one of those opinions is I'm happy to use gouache on cellulose paper. I don't need to use it on 100% cotton paper, especially with how much cotton paper costs. So what I do is I save my 100% cotton watercolor paper for watercolors, because watercolors is where it makes a big difference, in my opinion. Watercolors can be a struggle on cellulose paper, but it can be delightful on 100% cotton paper. So that's why I like to save my cotton paper for watercolors, because yeah, it makes a big difference with watercolors. So I'm happy to use just the cheaper paper. Just to show you real quick some of the pads that I mentioned using for gouache, and that is Fluid 100. This is the hot press, and this is the cold press. Both are 100% cotton. Like I said, I don't have to have cotton for my gouache, but these are very nice papers, and I happen to have them. So yeah, I have used gouache on these, and they look very nicely. One, because this one's really smooth, which is what I like to use on with gouache, and this is the hot press, and this one is the cold press, but it's, like I said, it is not a heavy texture. It's not a pronounced texture, so that's actually very nice as well. Low texture, I guess is what I would call that. This is another 100% cotton paper. This is Arches Hot Press, and this is smooth. So yeah, that's very nice to use. Again, not necessary to have 100% cotton for me. Others might disagree, but yeah. So here we've got several different brands of just cellulose cold press. And this one is Artist Loft, and it does have texture on there. But these are all very similar. The Artist Loft, the Strathmore, and the Canson XL. These are all cold press cellulose, very similar in their texture. Let's see, that was the Artist Loft. This is Strathmore, and this is Canson XL. Now for the paints. This is the exciting part, right? This is the star of the show. Now, okay, I guess I'll just start with the first set that producer Mike purchased, and that is this Holbein set of 12 tubes, and these are the 5 milliliter size, so these are little mini tubes compared to, say, a 15 milliliter tube. Okay, let's compare that in size there. Yeah. This was a way to get a dozen colors and test them out, see if I like gouache, and boy did I. so yeah, this was a fun way to get introduced, because there is a different starter set. I think it has 4 or 5 tubes in it, 15 mil size. I don't know. It's hard for me to get excited over just a few colors, right? So having the 12 color set really excited me. It's just, I think, a little more motivating for me to see something like this, as opposed to something with just a few colors. I mean, yeah, I get it. I can mix colors, but boy, this is just, to me, this sparks creativity. Yeah, a little more motivating. So yeah, so that was nice to start with that. And of course I went through all of the white very quickly as I was warned. So that is that. And producer Mike got me the Caran d'Ache tin of, it's more than 12. I think it's like 14 colors. Let's go 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 colors plus a tube of white. And I like the convenience of this. Look, they even give you a brush. Is that not cool? And it's not just a dinky number 2 brush. This is a number 8 round. And there's really no markings on here except where it says Caran d'Ache and 8. But yeah, that's a pretty substantial brush, number 8 round. So that's nice that that's included. Plus a whole tube of white. Yes, thank you. Yeah, this is okay. Mine is a little weird in that it doesn't like to close securely, but I understand other people's work are secure just fine. Now this I suppose can be used obviously for studio work, but I think the point of having it all in a tin like this in cake form is so that you can take it with you and do some mobile painting, right? And I like that idea, but to me this doesn't seem that conducive for that purpose, just because, well, it's quite heavy and it is substantial in size. Now, yeah, this is 11 inches wide, 4.5 inches tall. Now, sure, if you've got a tote bag or something, you could definitely put that in, but that's gonna weigh you down a bit. Like I said, it is kind of heavy, and I don't know how convenient that would be to take it with you. I don't actually paint outdoors, so I'm probably not the right person to ask as far as mobility issues. But to me, I just think that would be a little problematic. But, you know, maybe you lift weights and you're extra in the upper body strength. In that case, you know, disregard what I've just said. But yeah, very fun to use. But yeah, I didn't have any issues with it. You just, you know, you can spray the whole thing to get it nice and moist, or you can just drop some water in with the brush and give it a minute to soften up, and it was perfectly fine to work with. I look at these things, you know, it's like I haven't used it in so many weeks, and I'm thinking, oh, I really need to use this again because it's fun. I don't remember how much it cost, honestly, but I remember thinking, yeah, that's a reasonable price. Because, you know, a lot of times I'm thinking, oh, that's outrageous. You want that much for that little? But no, that was not the case with this. This I felt was appropriately priced. Then Holbein came out with their Iridori, 4 Iridori sets of gouache. Fall, winter, summer, spring. This is the fall, or I should say the autumn set. This was the one that I wanted the most because I feel that this is the best curated of all 4 boxes, because just look at that color assortment. These are my kinds of colors. I love autumnal things, and I think this is beautiful. Now, their winter set also looks fantastic, I have to say. And the summer set looks to me to be a nice, bright, vibrant, basic color assortment. The spring set doesn't really ring my bells because it looks like a lot of pastels, and I'm not really into pastels, so yeah, I'm really glad to have this set for sure. And if I were to ever get another one, I'd probably go for winter and possibly summer. But to be honest, I'm not a completionist when it comes to these kinds of things. So this is plenty of paint. I can be very happy painting with these. Now, these are colors that are not included in like the regular color lineup, the Holbein gouache, I mean. So yeah, none of these or their Iridori, in any of their Iridori boxes, none of them are going to be in this set or their other basic color sets. These are special. You've got things like gardenia yellow, elm green, pine tree green, bark brown, smoked bamboo. Oh, and there is one, it's like a metallic paint here. It's antique rich gold, and that is very shimmery. Very beautiful. Okay, and then producer Mike got me a bunch of Da Vinci brand gouache tubes. And he got me a set. Okay, these are the smaller ones. The smaller ones are part of the CMYK set. Okay, so you have the 4 colors, CMYK, and then 2 tubes of white came included in that set. Now, CMYK stands for cyan, magenta, yellow, and K. K stands for black. So cyan, magenta, yellow, black, and then the white. And, you know, those are printing colors in the printing world. Now, he also got me just a handful of individual tubes because they were having a sale. So yeah, I mean, but they're big tubes and they were at a great price, and he couldn't get pass that up. So, oh, and then there's a humongous tube of white, permanent white from Holbein, and I think this is 60 mils. 60 mils for this one. Then I told producer Mike, I have plenty of gouache. I don't really need any more gouache. But he got me the M-Gram 5-color basic gouache set. He said, you know, you gotta have it just to compare with all the other ones, right? So I can't argue with that logic. So he did get me this gouache set. Now, M-Gram is from Oregon, Da Vinci is from California, Holbein is from Japan, and Caran d'Ache is from Switzerland, I think. Yes, Switzerland is Caran d'Ache. Now, I am a big fan of M-Gram watercolors. I have to say I'm not a big fan of their gouache. Now, I have used this on, I started to work on a painting project, and I got really frustrated. I wasn't really happy with how it was turning out. I didn't care much for the consistency, first of all. And also, they seem to me to they're not as opaque as some other brands. At least that's what it seems to me. And so yeah, I was having some issues. Yeah, that project I haven't finished. So at this point, I'm going to set these aside and just enjoy my Da Vinci's and Holbein's and Caran d'Ache, and I'll have to give this another try down the line and see if my opinion might change on that. For now, of all the gouaches I have, the gouache brands that I have, the M-Gram is my least favorite. So that one is there. But I do need to explain this, because this is a Magello Fusion 33 paint palette. Most of those paintings I showed earlier were done where I just squeezed fresh from the tube, right? I just squeezed out the paint fresh from the tube onto a mixing palette. I have several porcelain ones, so I usually just use one of those. But you can also use it in like this. This is the plastic mixing palette, and that works fine too. But yeah, I would just squeeze out my colors and work from fresh squeezed paint. Now, I did want to try working from a palette like this, though, and see if that could work for me. And my idea was, well, first of all, here's the color chart, handy dandy, and it corresponds with where the colors are in the wells, so I know what color's what. And then I do like that the mixing tray here that is removable is a large tray. You can put a lot of paint in there. So that's very helpful. Now there is this like blue line here that's a rubber gasket, and that supposedly makes it a airtight seal. I don't know. I don't trust those things, okay? And, you know, it doesn't keep your paint wet in there. In any case, things dry out, and that's fine, because my purpose here is to have a little bit of color there, so that when I just want to work quickly and just spray it down, wet everything, get it soft, and work from there, I can do that. Or I can get the right color tube, and I can add to whatever color and paint fresh from that well, squirt a little more fresh. But of course, whatever's left in there will just be added to its well, and I can close it up, and then, you know, it's still there to work from later on. So that was the idea behind this. And so far, as long as I remember not to turn it upside down or on its side or anything like that, it works fine. Now, some of these do crumble and like to migrate in case if you shake it up. So that's why I say I need to be careful and make sure that I don't shake it or tilt it upside down or whatever, so that the paint stays in its well. I can deal with it. But yeah, I have all if I don't want to work from the palette here, I've got all the tubes still that I can squeeze out fresh if I want to. So I've already said that I was disappointed with the M-Gram gouache. I thought the Da Vinci brand worked fine. I really don't have any complaints about Da Vinci. The only thing that really is that I just don't think they're as good as Holbein. And that's because the Holbein are such a joy to use. I love the consistency of Holbein. Their colors are beautiful. Plus, they have these special colors here. And look at that in the autumn. And yeah, like I said, consistency, the colors, saturation. Yeah, I think right now, Holbein is my favorite brand of gouache. Love them. Art supplies can sometimes be a big investment, but then there are also times where you can get a lot of bang for your buck. Keep your eyes open for deals. Sometimes you can find sets like these at a discounted price. I've found I'm not great at it, but producer Mike, he has a good sense of finding those good deals. I don't know how, but yeah, he's really good at sniffing out the bargains. Basically, Car and Dosh, I think, is a fun set. I mean, if you don't want to deal with tubes, and I don't blame you necessarily for not wanting to have a bunch of tubes laying around. If you just want a set that has it all there, 14 colors, they're in convenient cakes, and you've got a built-in mixing palette here. You even get a brush, for crying out loud, man. To me, this is fun. And you know what? If I just had this, I would be happy too. Really, honestly, this is, if I just, if I didn't have all of this, and just this, I could be happy. I could go to town. I can do some fun stuff here. Now this one I think was, I want to say $35, but I could be wrong on that. All I can tell you is what I personally like. And what I personally like is a brush that is not too soft. I like a brush that's a little sturdier, a little either firm or snappy, not too firm. Obviously, I don't want a house painting brush, but what I like, okay, I'm just gonna say my favorite line right now for gouache is probably the Snap line from Princeton. To me, I think they're great for, I liked using Snap for watercolors for a while because, they have snap and they have a lot of control, and it's really great to learn watercolors with for me using Snap brushes. Let me just pull out all of these. Now I did give some of my first Snap brushes to my sister a while back, but I did purchase these specifically for gouache. Now let's see if we can zoom in a little bit. There we go. Okay, so this is the Snap line from Princeton. This is a 3/4 inch angle. This is a number 10 round and a number 8 filbert. And the filbert just means it has like a curved edge there. But it is like a flat brush with just curved corners there. So yes, I do like using these with gouache. I don't like to use a really soft brush because I just find that the softer brushes, are great for holding lots of water, right? Making big washes and things like that. And, I do some wash work with gouache, but that's not really a thing I do. And I can do that with a big flat brush, really, which, I love the flat brushes, to be honest. That's actually my preference in a lot of instances. So yeah, so I don't really feel the need to have something like, a soft squirrel quill or mop brush for gouache. That's not. I want to save these really nice brushes, soft squirrel, synthetic squirrel brushes. These are Princeton's Neptune series. I like to save these for doing my watercolor work. And I don't want these brushes getting ruined because I can't afford to replace my watercolor brushes, including these. I love these too. These are great for watercolors. And these are the Aqua Elites from Princeton. They're synthetic Kolinsky sable. So you've got, really soft and thirsty here in the Neptunes. You've got, You've got a little springier, more precision in the Aqua Elites with their synthetic Kolinsky. So I love both of these for watercolors, and I want to keep them nice for watercolors. Now, the reason that's a concern for me is because gouache is a thicker medium. Now, I can make it thin, like watercolor, but a lot of times I use it in the thicker consistencies. And the gouache does tend to settle in to the very base of these filaments. And it can take some working to get it cleaned out. Now, I have washed my gouache brushes and thinking that I washed them really well. But the next day after they've dried and I pick it up and it's all hard and crunchy, and it's like, oh. And so I go to wash it again, and sure enough, there's a whole bunch of color that comes out because there was leftover paint in there. So I do have to work a little harder at getting the paint out of the bristles, out of the filaments. And that means that I work it with my fingers. I try to be as gentle as possible, but I want to get my brushes clean. So I do, it does take, my gouache brushes take a little more abuse. And that's why I have my watercolor brushes separate from my gouache brushes. That's one of the reasons, I should say, because yes, like I said, I do like a little bit firmer, a little bit snappier for gouache brushes as opposed to watercolor brushes. So those are the snap brushes I have now. These are some older Real Value brushes that some of the first decent brushes I got, and this is again Princeton, but it is their most budget friendly series. And so these I also use. There's a couple of flats and a couple of rounds. This is the Select series from Princeton, and these are some of their smaller brushes. Now they do have a whole bunch of other sizes too, but I was just kind of getting some specific ones that I felt I needed at the time. And so I have these. And these have worked fine too. And again, there's a filbert here and a couple of flats and what do they call that? A pointed filbert, and then round there too. This is a 1-inch stroke, and this is Silver White line from the Silver Brush Company. And yeah, I do like to have a nice big flat. Now this is a 3/4 inch, so it's this one's a little bit bigger than this one, so that's cool. Because I was doing most of my coverage, large coverage with this one, but this one is a little nicer to use than this one. So that covers a lot of area. And this is my most recent acquisition. Is I think the last time we were at Artists and Craftsman Supply, and Mike wanted to get me something, so I thought, well, I did have my eye. I was looking at this. It's a beautiful looking brush, and I figured I'd try one from this series, the Umbria series from Princeton. I thought I'd try one of those and see how I like that. And this is a number 2 1/4 inch bright. And I love that handle. Oh my goodness, that olivey brown with the gold printing on there. Oh, goodness. I've just realized I forgot to explain that that's, it's just some paint stain. It's nothing. I'm not hurt, just paint stain. But yeah, I meant to explain also that this is what I use. This is what I use for cleaning my brushes. I used to, before I got this, I used to just, use a a bar of soap and water and just clean my brushes that way. But I really like this. I do. I think this does a great job. And it's called the Masters Brush Cleaner and Preserver. And it says it cleans oil paint, watercolor, acrylic, and stains. And on the back, it says use for oils, acrylics, and watercolors. Rinse brush in warm water, swirl brush in compound, and work into a lather. Rinse and repeat as necessary until brush is clean. Rinse again with water. Now, this is the 2.5 ounce size container. And the first one I got was just a very small sample size container. So I was very happy to get this upgrade, I guess. This is the next size up. Now, if I were more productive, I probably would have gone through it all by now. But so I'm actually kind of eyeing the larger container now. But let me see if I can. When this, I recently used this, so it's still kind of moist in there. But after a while, it will dry out between uses, and it will be loose in there, and you can kind of pop it out. And it doesn't want to do that now. But yeah, I like it. It's not expensive. I don't remember how much I paid for it, but I do remember it's not expensive. I do have my brushes separated into containers. It's like a makeup container with 3 compartments. It's acrylic. And so I've organized this for holding my watercolor brushes. And this one I just picked up at Daiso. And I've had to stuff some tissues in there so that because it is a little taller than ideal, they would sink too far down inside. So what I did was stuffed some tissues in there so I can fit these in and it'll still be easy to grab. Yeah, you can see. Yeah, so these are my gouache brushes. So anyway, I just wanted to share some of my thoughts on gouache and the tools and supplies. And it's been a lot of fun so far working with gouache. I mean, I love working with watercolors, but there's something about gouache that I think is a little more forgiving, mostly because you can cover up mistakes. You can go back in with another layer, cover it up, and no one's the wiser. Unless you point it out and tell them, right? It's like, oh, I messed up there, like I do in my videos. Until next time, remember, if I can do it, you can do it. And stay artsy, my friends.